Hello, good morning friends. Welcome back to your favorite channel CodeOneDigest. Today in this tutorial, we'll be learning Nodejs GraphQL, a book API project. Yes friend, in this tutorial we will learn how can we create a book API project in Nodejs GraphQL. Book is our domain object and we'll be writing few simple APIs to fetch the book data using GraphQL server. So if you don't know GraphQL server, then I'll show you that in this tutorial step by step. What is GraphQL? What is GraphQL server? What is GraphQL schema? What is GraphQL query? What is GraphQL resolver? All of that I'm going to cover in this project. So stay tuned and watch this tutorial till end. If you want to learn Node.js, if you want to learn GraphQL, then this is the tutorial for you. Right friends? In 10 minutes, you will be able to create Node.js GraphQL application. Right friends? Okay friends, so here is the agenda of this tutorial today. I'll give you brief introduction of Node.js GraphQL book API project. What are we trying to achieve in this tutorial? What we are going to write in this project. So all of that we'll understand. Then I'll tell you the prerequisite for this tutorial so that you can follow me. All the required dependencies and software. Then I'll explain you the architecture, what we are trying to achieve, how it is going to work, what component we are writing, how it is going to work, how the component are interacting with each other. So we'll cover that as a part of architecture. Then we'll understand the packages that we are using in this tutorial, like GraphQL, Apollo server. What are these packages? What exactly they provide? Then I'll show you the coding of schema, resolver, and index.js file. So all of that we'll cover in this tutorial. Then finally, I'll be running this book API application with GraphQL server in the Node.js, and we'll be testing our GraphQL queries to fetch the book information from Node server. And at the end, I'll be summarizing this video. Right, friends? With me? Okay, friends. So here is the architecture of this tutorial today, what we are trying to achieve. In the center, we have a GraphQL server. GraphQL server, that is Apollo server, is running along with our Node.js server. And we will be firing a GraphQL query from a user interface that I'll show you how can we use Apollo sandbox user interface to test our GraphQL APIs. And finally, it will be making a database call. And we are using in-memory database. That means we have created some data in a memory. We are simulating database within our code itself. Okay. The whole purpose of this tutorial is to understand the GraphQL server, not the database implementation. I have created data within my code itself. We'll be reading the book data from this in-memory database. We'll be making call and fetching the data. Right friends, with me, very simple architecture. The whole idea of this tutorial is to understand GraphQL Apollo server with Node.js. How can you write a schema? How can you write the resolver? Then how can you initiate the Apollo server instance? And then how can you fire a query? Right friends, with me? Okay friends, so here is the prerequisite for this tutorial. These are some Node.js dependencies that we are going to use in this tutorial. I'm going to use Node 18.14.2. You can use the latest version. Then I'll be using Apollo server module, that is 3.12.1, and I'll be using GraphQL module, that is 16.8.0. Apollo server is a implementation of GraphQL specification. GraphQL is a specification what a team of GraphQL has defined. Now Apollo server have implemented those specification, and Apollo server is provided for all JavaScript frameworks, hence it is also supported in the Node.js. Right friends, with me? Friends, before we proceed in this video, I request you to subscribe this channel to grow CodeOneDigest family. Friends, I am creating a lot of quality videos on programming, coding concepts, design pattern and design principles, cloud and container technologies, but I'm not getting subscribers. I request you to like, share and subscribe this channel so that I can grow our CodeOneDigest family. Thank you. Okay friends, so I have opened my Visual Studio Code. You can also open a Visual Studio Code and start coding with me. I'll explain you step by step what all things you have to do. Open a Visual Studio Code, create a directory, okay, and create one package.json file inside that. Okay, if you see this is my project, it has very few files, very simple application. In 10 minutes, I'll show you how can you write a GraphQL API, right? So it just have package.json and one single index.js file. And in these two files, we will be completing our tutorial, right friends? So in 10 minutes, you will be able to write your own GraphQL API to fetch the book domain object. Let me open the package.json. Okay, it has a very basic information, the name of the project, version, description, and so on. The main important thing to see here is the dependencies. So I have added Apollo server 3.12.1 and GraphQL 16.8.0. Right, friends? Once this is done, we'll be running a GraphQL install command so that all these dependencies will get downloaded. This specific version will get downloaded. It will be downloading all the dependencies inside the node modules folder. So let me open the command prompt. Let me open the command prompt and then run the command npm space install, right? So it will download all the dependencies for you. Though I have already downloaded the dependencies and it is saying it is up to date, right? So it will download and update all the dependencies what you have. Once this is done, you can validate that node module directory is created and it will have all the dependencies downloaded. All the dependent modules, all the dependent components have been downloaded. Now, in this project, you create one index.js file, okay? And then very first line, we are importing Apollo server. So you see, I'm importing Apollo server, require Apollo server, and then I'm defining two objects, Apollo server and GQL. Okay, GQL is to define the schema. We'll see that. So this constant, we are defining a schema. How GraphQL work is, you have to define a schema where you define what all information you are going to serve to your clients. So you will define the attributes, what all attributes, specific attributes that you will serve to your consumers. So you may be fetching data from a single database or multiple database, or you may be fetching data from database plus third-party microservices, or you may be fetching data from multiple microservices plus database, and so on. You can have any backend, but you will be defining a schema here, right? You may be fetching data from 10 different sources, but you will define what you want to serve to your consumer. That is why GraphQL is very efficient. You don't overfetch or underfetch the information from your backend systems. What happens in microservices? We overfetch the information. You may be getting 20 attributes from the microservices and you may be interested only in two attributes, right? The API may be returning you 20 different attributes. Hence, it is a waste of bandwidth. It takes more time to process. It takes more time to transport the data. Hence, we use GraphQL, right? In GraphQL, we define a schema, and a schema defines what information we are going to serve to the consumer. Right, friends, with me? So if you see here, I have defined a type definition, GQL, and in this single quotes, I have defined the schema. I have defined type book, right? This is how we define the schema. I have said type book, title, and its type. So title, it is going to be string type. Author, it is going to be string type. These data types are defined in GraphQL, right? So I'm saying I'm going to serve a book object with a title and author, where title is of type string, author is of type string. You may have another attribute, let's say date of release, cost of the book as a numeric, right? So that also you can add. But to keep it simple, I have taken just two attributes, title and author, right, friends? And how the query will look like when somebody wants to query this object, this is how we will be firing a query, right? Type query books book. It will return this book. It's a list of books. Putting the book inside a bracket means it's a array. It is going to be list of books, right? That means we'll be fetching from our database, we'll be fetching all the books and returning to a consumer. Anything that we write within the bracket, that means it is array or a list of that object. Okay, friends, so this is how we define the schema. Friends, if you want to learn what all data types are there in GraphQL, so go and watch the playlist. I have created a complete playlist for GraphQL tutorial. These are very short tutorial, 1 minute videos. you can understand the basic concepts of GraphQL. Go and watch all the videos. I have explained all these concepts of GraphQL in 1 minute short videos. Go and watch the complete playlist. The playlist link is there on your screen. Right, friends? Once the schema is defined, once this is done, then we come to our data. So this is where our defining our dummy data. Right? I told you we'll be creating a data in a memory. So this is we are creating a data in a memory. Okay, friends. So this is how I'm creating a data. I have defined a books, and then it is array where I'm defining two books inside that. This is my first book and this is my second book. Hence, when we call the API, we are going to get two books. You may be fetching the same information from your real database, but to keep the tutorial simple and to focus on the concept of GraphQL server, GraphQL schema, GraphQL query, GraphQL resolver, I have not taken the complexity of database connection and database integration. Right, friends? So I have created a data. Now what we'll do is we'll write a resolver. Resolver is nothing but your data handler. Resolver says how will you fetch the data from your backend. It may be coming from a underlying database, or it may be coming from some other third-party microservices, or it may be coming from multiple microservices that you are running in the backend. Resolver tells you how are you fetching the data. So in this scenario, you see we're returning books as an object and it is returning our constant that is books. Let's say you may be fetching the data actually from your database component, then you would be calling the database component and that method name, right? Let's say db.getBooks. Okay, you can write in that way also. But here in this example, as my data is here only, hence I'm taking a reference of the book directly here. Simple. So here is the main code where we are defining the instance of Apollo server. You see new Apollo server, and in that Apollo server, it takes two attributes. Okay, first is type definition. This is nothing but our schema. What is our schema? And it takes resolver. So we have to provide these two attributes while initializing the Apollo server so that Apollo server understands how your schema looks like and how are you going to fetch the data for that schema. So that two arguments are important and mandatory to create an instance, right? So you create Apollo server instance. I have that server in a server constant. Now finally, I'm starting a server. I'm saying server.listen and it is going to start on a default port. And we are going to use the default URL with a context root, right? Very simple application. You can write this application in 10 minutes and run that. Now what I'll do is I'll run this application and show you how can you test this application. Okay, let me do that. Okay, friends. So now let me run and show you. You just have to type node index.js file, right? Now it says the server has started on HTTP localhost 4000. Now what I'll do is I'll open a browser and take this URL and hit it and see what happens. Okay. What is going to happen is when we hit this URL, we are going to open a Apollo server UI component that comes out of the box. It's like a sandbox testing. Okay. Okay, friends. So now let me open the browser and test this URL in the browser. Let's see what happens. Let me go to the browser. Let me paste that URL. Now let's see what happens. So see, it is opening a Apollo server sandbox. It says get a free private query console and schema generated doc for your graph in Apollo Studio. Yeah, and then you can say query your server. Your sandbox has opened and this is running your localhost 4000, right? So this is the operation tab where you can paste your query and then run it and then you can see the response. So this is the query I have created. So how do I write the query here? Books. I want to fetch books and inside books I am going to fetch the title and author, right? Once you write this and say run, right? Do you see you got a response here? What all information you have got? So say data Inside data, you have books. Books is nothing but our list of books, and it has two books object inside it, right? This is first book and this is your second book, right? So you have got the data from your database, right? Very simple application. I hope this is clear to you. This is my GitHub repository. You need not to worry about the code. You can download the code from this repository. This is my repository, CodeOneDigest, and this is a project, Nodejs GraphQL Book API project. You can just clone this repository into your local by copying this and start using it. You can start running it directly. You can modify the code. You need not to write the code from the scratch. Use this project as your base and then modify the code as per your requirement. Right, friends? So the URL of this repository is also available in the description section of this tutorial. So go and download the code and start using it. Right, friends? Okay, friends. So here is the summary of this tutorial today. Let me walk you through what we learned today in this tutorial. I gave you introduction of Node.js GraphQL Book API project. Then I explained you the prerequisite, what all software and dependencies are required in this tutorial. And then I explained you the project with an architecture diagram. What are we trying to achieve? What all components we are going to build? How we are going to save the data? And all of that we covered as a part of architecture. Then we understood the packages like GraphQL and Apollo server. What are these modules and why do we require these modules, right? Finally, I explained you the coding of schema, resolver, and index.js file. I have shown you how to run the application, and finally we have tested the GraphQL API, right? I have shown you how to test the GraphQL API using a Apollo server sandbox. Right, friends, with me? If you like this video, so give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, so do subscribe to my channel to grow CodeOneDigest family. Friends, if you like this video, so give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for the more interesting videos. Click on the bell icon for the latest video notifications and do not forget to share this video with all your friends and colleagues. This is very useful information for students, beginners, and software engineers. I am putting a lot of efforts in creating these contents. So please help me growing the CodeOneDigest family. Please subscribe to CodeOneDigest channel for the latest programming and technology related videos. Thank you.